Hello, everybody at the What's On and Elephant and Castle Facebook page. I am Nick from Retribe, and joining me today is Maddie Musculescu, who is going to talk about the kind of future of work environments and working from home. Maddie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you too. I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. It's funny because, the New Year's a really, it's always the same thing. It's a very slow, kind of everyone getting back into the pace of getting back into work and strolling into town. And I live right in the West End, so it's a real barometer of how people are getting back into work. And I think some people are still, the people who can afford it are still on holiday. So it's very quiet, but it feels like a really good start to the year. How about yourself?
Well, I got the same feeling. I still feel like I'm on holiday for some reason. It was
Yeah.
hard to get myself started, but I did it eventually, 2 cups of coffee, and here I am.
My second. Um,
My third.
yeah. Maddie, I know you're up in Birmingham right now, but you do kind of have a base here in London. You are a bit of a world traveler. You're from Romania originally. I know that I really love the fact that you were explaining the history of well, not the history, but your last name to me, and how it's a very unique name in Romania. But um, maybe just kind of your nomadic ways, the kind of things that you like to do around traveling. Where did that come from? The idea of like you wanted to kind of be this world explorer.
Well, I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to meet new people, new cultures. And I traveled as much as I could in the past, but because of my previous jobs, I couldn't do that for a longer period of time. And that's when I decided that I want to do more than this. And of course, other factors were involved, but this was one of the main reasons that I decided to work from anywhere in the world like I do now. So yeah, that's
Um, so you get to work from like I know the last couple of years things have just it's changed the whole kind of work landscape. But the company that you work with now, can you kind of talk about the origins of that? I know they're an American-based company, but can you tell us a little bit about the organization that you're working with now?
Yes, I started my remote working journey last year in April, actually, not with Growmotely, but with Grow My Team, which is the sister company of Growmotely. And a couple of months later, I joined Growmotely, which is a startup. Actually, it's a HR tech platform that culture match companies with remote professionals globally. This is what we do. And yes, it's from the US, and we have a global team. I have colleagues like literally everywhere in the world.
Growmotely as an organization. I mean, was it coming off of the pandemic idea, or was it something that was around before?
No, it was around before because Grow My Team started 6 years ago, before COVID, before the pandemic started. And Sarah Hawley, the CEO of Grow My Team and Growmotely, had this amazing idea that, we should be able to work from anywhere in the world, and why shouldn't we do this? So she started Grow My Team as a recruitment company. And then the two companies have merged, and we have a new platform, which is Growmotely, with a new concept. And it kind of wants to change the way we see remote work in the future and work as well.
So what is that concept? What do you think is the way that working remotely it is changing? But what's kind of the business model around Growmotely, and how does it work?
Well, with the pandemic and everything, there were many companies that had to work from home. But this is not about just working from home. It's about taking your work with you and bringing your whole self to work as well. So you should be able to work flexible hours, to be accountable, to be empowered, to take decisions, to be trusted as well. And this is something that we do, and we encourage companies to do the same with their remote professionals.
I think it was really interesting, just when the pandemic happened, looking at LinkedIn and Facebook and a lot of organizations that were saying, hey, do you know what, you've got to work from home. But a lot of people were scared that productivity was going to go down, and that people were just going to be, oh, it's kind of like a holiday. All I have to do is open up my laptop and click that I'm here, but I could turn the camera off and I could walk around in my wardrobe and have a cup of coffee. I know there was a lot of kind of fun around that idea, but there was a lot of fear from organizations that productivity was going to go down and people's accountability was going to become lessened. Do you know anything around the kind of the stats of the productivity and how people were with that transition from the office to working at home?
Yeah, I don't think that this affected the productivity of a company, because there were many people having kids, having to take care of them when working from home. And I think that was best for everyone during the pandemic, because they could take care of their kids while working, while doing errands in the house and everything they wanted to do. And actually, studies have shown that the productivity has gone up, not down. So
yeah, that's what we found as well, is that people were actually, I think it was because of the freedoms, and they were like the shackles of 9 to 5 work life were taken off, and they were becoming more creative and more free and more able to kind of speak their truths. And I think it was a pleasant surprise to business owners, but I think it was a real eye opener to the way people wanted to work in the future.
Yeah. And imagine having to drive like for an hour to go to work and to come back from work. That was a time that you could use in a more productive way, like waking up later, or doing everything that you want to do the way you want to do and still working.
Yeah, I have friends that did a lot of commuting, and sometimes their commutes were like 2.5 hours into London. And they had said to me that they really enjoyed that time on the train, because it gave them some time to kind of just think and relax and see the world go by, and it gave them a little bit of time, so they didn't mind the commute. But then it started to work in a way of the money that they would be spending on the train, the money for food, etc. They could easily just go for a walk in the park with their laptop, or go sit by, obviously that time of the year, or go sit by a stream or something, to just get out into nature with their laptops, and it was a lot more beneficial to them. So it was kind of, they really enjoyed that time traveling, but then they thought about the money that they spent on the traveling, sometimes 4 or 5 days a week, spending a lot of money coming into London. And I think I love the idea that our whole future is coming out of these old ideas of like the Industrial Revolution, and how the 9 to 5 work week that we all, and Monday to Friday, that we all think is like a norm, is an old idea, that was built around factory work, and it was built around like clocking in and clocking out, and really the commodification of the human being really became prevalent. And I'm really loving what you guys are doing, because it's giving people the freedom to be more productive, to say, this is how I want to work, and this is what's going to come out of me. So I really love that idea that we're actually challenging the old ways, right? And saying that there are new ways.
Exactly.
How has it worked with you? Because I know that let's talk about you and your beginning in the kind of work in the corporate world, and maybe any struggles that you had, with that old way of life, and how, what you're doing now is creating a lot more freedom for you.
Yeah, what I'm doing now is completely different from what I used to do before. I used to work in the medical industry, and I was selling medical devices in the past for Romanian companies. And I found that a very toxic workplace from time to time, because I wasn't allowed to express what I was thinking. I wasn't allowed to come up with new ideas uh, because that was the culture in those companies. So you have to do what you are told to do, and that was it. And because of that, I really wanted to change something in my life. So about what you said about spending time in or commuting, I had a similar experience when it took me 2.5 hours to get from point A to point B to a 10-minute meeting, just because the company I worked for wanted to have it face to face. And it was something that I could have done over the phone, but I wasn't allowed to do that. And I remember thinking that it was so frustrating that I was wasting so much time in traffic, where I can use that time in a more productive way, like I'm doing now. I'm responsible of my own time, and we work flexible hours, for example. And if I have something to do in the morning, I can do that in the evening. I can work in the evening. So it's okay to do things as I want to do. And of course, talking about expressing what you think, you are encouraged to come up with new ideas. You are encouraged to do things as you want to. You are accountable and autonomous and responsible for the things that you're creating, which is amazing. And it's completely different from what I used to do in the past. So yeah, I guess now I'm an advocate for remote work, and I'm encouraging people to speak their mind and to do whatever feels right for them to do, and to work with companies that are aligned with their values, with their purpose in life. Because it's not about work, as you said. It has to be a balance between personal life and professional life, and you have to keep it very balanced.
Yeah. It's almost like I don't want the effort in trying to balance it. I want it to be streamlined and integrated and flowing easily. And I don't want stress, around what I have to do at certain times of day. Obviously, we need to have, what's the word that I'm looking for? Target-based work, so, you've got this paper to write or this presentation to make, then you've got that, and it needs to be made by a certain time, but it's not like you have to put 8 hours of the day into doing it. It can be, if it only takes you an hour, it takes you an hour. Yeah. But I'm interested to know, because it is a very new concept, working remotely. It's a new concept, but do you have any kind of feedback or numbers around generational acceptance to this new idea? Do you think it's something like, I'm 50, I'll be 51 in February. And it's something that I'm embracing, because it's like, and I loved also the fact that you were talking about picking, things that you're passionate about, and not necessarily these kind of things that when you're, in your mid to kind of late teens, you're being bred along the lines of, what A levels or what high school classes to take, so that you can go into university for 3 to 4 years, get a qualification, either go on to higher education, become a doctor or a scientist or an engineer. And it's at a very early age we're instilled, and that was my generation. And I'm interested to know now, it's really cool. I've had like 3 different careers in my life, and I'm really happy, because a lot of guys my age that haven't had that opportunity to have these different careers. So I feel a little bit younger in that respect, but I'm just interested to know your take on, is there a generational acceptance level to not only working from like in remote conditions, but also changing professions, and going in from, one profession to a profession where maybe you're more passionate about. Have you seen kind of a trend with regards to that over the last couple of years?
Yes, I've seen it, and And we also had the future of work survey, something that we do like every year to see how things are going in the remote community. And actually 74 of remote professionals would do that like full time, will work from anywhere in the world, because they like the freedom that remote work gives it. And also they like to take care of their own time, to travel, because this is something that we do lately. We travel a lot, we see a lot of places, meet new cultures and people. So yeah, and from my experience, if you have asked me this question 2 years ago, my answer would be completely different, because I had regrets. I wish I could go to college and have a different career, different than what I was doing in the past, in the medical industry. And I thought, I'm 30 and it's going to be hard to change that. I'm not doing this. I've been working in this industry for 8 years, so I'll keep doing it. But last year I decided that, I can take a risk, I can make a change. It's all about what I feel and how I want to feel. And I decided that, yeah, this risk should be taken. And now I'm very happy that I did the change, because I've never been happier in my life with what I do.
So what's the difference? Is it that, what was it that you felt when you were doing that, working in the medical industry? Did you feel constrained? Like, what was the thing that made you feel anxious, or at least not happy or alive? Alive. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yeah. Flourishing back then. What were the feelings?
Well, there were times when I was frustrated. Of course, I was happy that I could help people, because it was the medical industry, and that's what you do. You help people. But I guess the culture in the company I was working with was completely different, and I didn't like that. I used to came home from work and I don't know, felt anxious or frustrated because of my work, because of my manager, or anything from work used to frustrate me. And now it's completely different. So I can see the difference with what happened back then and what is happening now, because it was hard to not having someone to talk to. Maybe it was a bit of depression as well a couple of years ago because of that. So I was really struggling and I couldn't understand why. I thought it's something that I do, but it actually was the job that I was doing, because I was not happy with what I was doing back then.
Sorry that you were struggling back then. I know it's very brave for you to have actually taken the steps to move away from it. And what did that look like for you when you recognized that you were struggling and that you're depressed? What was the catalyst for you to say, hey, you know what, I don't know how old you were, because I know you mentioned 30, but at the time. Actually, yeah. You're 32 now?
33.
33. Okay, so we'll say three or 4 years ago. What was that catalyst that was like, I've had enough, I've got to change? Or things have got to change, not me?
I think I was aware I was depressed, but it was hard for me to accept that I was depressed. So I just continued with what I was doing until one day when I decided, enough is enough. So I have to make a change. And I'm, the person with the lists. I do a list for absolutely everything in my life. So I started creating a list with pros and cons. And after reading that list, I realized that I wasn't happy and I should change something in my life. So that's what I did.
So you're 33. Does that make you a millennial? Right, it does, doesn't it? Right.
It does. I think it does. Yeah.
I think it does. And I'm going to get into something now that's completely it just came to me now because I was listening to this podcast, and I don't know if it was something that was recommended to me last night. And it was, do you know Carl Jung? You heard of Carl Jung? So there's a podcast called This Jungian Life. Okay. And they discuss kind of the Jungian teachings. And one of the podcasts that I'm going to start listening to is called Legacy Living. And it was, I've only listened to a couple of minutes, but it really made me think about, I'm Gen X, you're a millennial. And then we've got the Gen Zs and I don't know what they call today. If you're born today, I should really know this. But they talk about how this kind of need for greed, I suppose, that was born out of the 1930s America, post World War II, industrial, the rebuilding of the factories, the rebuilding of companies, the rebuilding of new industries, and how corporations really got their tentacles into the culture of humanity, especially in the Western world, where it became this thing of a very few people having most of the wealth and controlling the masses, which is the situation that we are in today, where, there's 5 big companies that own all of the other companies. It was really interesting. Someone said, there's 9 companies that own every single piece of media on the planet.
Yeah.
And then we are the commodity now. Our data is the commodity, our lifestyle, what we do. And people are making massive amounts of money just off of following, what we do on this thing here. And, now they talk about people of your generation. Now, I was able to get mortgages when I was younger. It was quite easy to get a mortgage and to buy a house. But now people of the Millennial and Gen Zs are being priced out of being able to buy property. And I'm wondering if it's creating a resentment in your generation towards the people, us, our generation, the baby boomers and the Gen Xers, for leaving the state of the world the way it is, really, where, so few have so much and so many are just we're at the grindstone. There's so much fear. There's so much fear to break away from that 9 to 5 and to go into Growmotely because of this kind of thing of, I'm not going to be able to provide. I'm not going to be able to put food on the table. I'm not going to be able to keep up with, my neighbors or my friends or the people who I went to school with, because we've become so materialistic in our world and in our behaviors. Is there an anger, do you think, in the fact that we're not enabling people to leave a legacy? That's a big question. Where it came from, I'm sorry.
And it's not an anger, but it feels different, because I had the same conversation with my parents, about what you said, being able to buy property in the past when it was easier, and now it's so hard for us to do the same, because there are so many things around us that we need to have access to, because everyone else has access to, and you want the same things as well. So it's a bit different now, but at the same time, I don't feel anger. It's just the way it is right now. You can't do much. You just have to be better. You just have to, indeed, you have to compete with someone else like all the time. And this is something that we constantly do in Romanian culture. We compete with each other. You look at your neighbor, it has a better car, you want that better car. It has a nice apartment, you want that too. They have nicer clothes, you want that too, because that's part of the Romanian culture. And we were raised like that, and you want them too. But I don't identify myself as that person. I always felt like I was different, and in a way that I don't need nicer clothes. I don't want a nice house. I just want to do things that make me happy. And if I am happy, all the things will come to me. It's like, I want to manifest things in my life by being happy and being optimistic and positive, and not wanting what others have, because you don't know what's what's in there. Maybe they have rich parents, maybe they did something completely different, and that's why they have so much. You don't know the struggle there.
Funny, I was listening to, Joe Rogan, his podcast. You've heard of
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, yeah. So I was listening to his podcast. He's got more money than anybody that I know. He's got that's not true, but he's disgustingly rich from doing what he does. And he was talking about money, and he was saying about how in his life, when he got to a certain point, he could finally have a nice apartment and a nice car and put food on the table and be able to go to a restaurant and not have to pick things on the menu that he knew that's all the money that he had on his debit card or his credit card. And then he got into a place of financial security where that was, and he said he was really happy. And then he said, as he got the $100 million, $130 million a year deal from Spotify, I think, something ridiculous. He said that it's made no more happiness in his life, and he goes, once you get to that certain stage of just comfort, of not being able to have to worry about what you pay for at the restaurant or what, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting in that in my own life as well, because I really did struggle with my identity when I was like 28, around 28 years old. And I was thinking that the only reason someone would like me is if I paid for all of the drinks in a restaurant or a bar, or if I bought the dinner, if I, a woman would only like me if I paid for stuff and I got nice clothes or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was and I was successful in a certain way because I ended up with those things, but I never felt so lonely. I never felt so isolated and just disconnected from things when I had a few nice things. And when I've been through my process of like, do I need to get back to having a nice car and a flat on the river and, being able to have some nice suits from Savile Row or something? And I thought even in this last 5 years of my life that I needed to obtain those things again. Well, and it's really now, what's that? Yeah, it's really, we like those things, but I really, in my state of my transformation or evolution, I'm just like, I don't really care anymore. And I think kind of like that's a younger person's attitude now, like, or at least a millennial or a Gen Zers that's just like, listen, you guys mess things up. I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
And I think that this kind of nomadic, purpose and passion driven lifestyle and work style, if you want to call that, is really going to be the future for a lot of people, because it's like, look, maybe I can't afford to buy a place, fine, but I'm going to go in an Airbnb and I'm going to be in this place, and I'm going to be in this place, and I'm going to be in this place, and my work is going to be able to pay me enough money to pay for those nice things. And the rich experiences that they are going to get by becoming part of a global community instead of working in the city here 9 to 5 or even longer hours, maybe getting the financial reward, but not getting the community or the connection that other people who are going to be. Because a lot of people, I think, when they think about working remotely, they think about working alone. And they think about losing it.
Never alone.
No, so let's talk about that, because I think that's something we need to dispel, that working remotely doesn't mean you're working by yourself. And it doesn't mean you're losing the human contact, right?
Yeah, it really depends on how you see things, because there are people that want to live this experience alone in their homes, and there are people like me who want to travel, and I'm never alone. I'm here in England, visiting my friends, visiting my family, making new connections. I met you, for example, so I'm not alone. And I will probably meet a lot of people in during my time here. So it really depends on how you see things, but when working remotely, you're never alone. And there's also the entire community, my team. We have people from Mexico, from the Philippines, from South Africa. We even decided to switch places at some point so we can visit each other's country and make new connections there. You are never alone in this journey.
Yeah, I think it's really important to stress that people can have choices. and obviously like this silly stuff that's going on right now with the COVID vaccines and everything. I'm not saying it's silly. I'm saying that it's stressful and it's hard to kind of put your finger on because everything's changing all of the time. But I am hoping that it gets resolved soon. And then how would you see your future in terms of work life and lifestyle going in the next year or two, depending on obviously what happens with COVID?
I plan to do the same thing, to travel and meet new people, as I said, because this is what I love the most. And somehow I want to make a difference in the world with the things that I do. I want to inspire people to embrace this remote work journey and to enjoy the things that I do. That's the goal for the next couple of years.
So how would you help someone embrace it? Like if someone is thinking about it and they're in the fear, right? I'm going to lose the security or the perceived security of my 9 to 5 and and my lifestyle the way it is. How do you kind of inspire people to say, hey, try it?
Well, is that a security that you have with your 9 to 5 job? Because there's no security there. It's just a job from 9 to 5, and it can also be a job from home from 9 to 5 or whenever you want. It's kind of the same thing. The difference is that you get to you are trusted, and when you're trusted, you feel different. Everything changes when you're trusted, when you're accountable, and the experience feels completely different. You may say that, I'm waking up in the bedroom and going into the living room to work. So what's that? But you can go to a coffee shop to work. You can go in the park. You can walk your dog. You can do whatever you want while working from home, which is completely different. And of course, with the pandemic and everything, there are lots of people that decided that they want to work from home now because the experience felt completely different. And of course, if you want to meet with your teammates, you can always go to a pub and have a drink in the evening. So that's an option too. Or if they're from different corners of the world, you'll have a meeting like we are having later. And you talk to them, and when the time feels right, you go and visit them. So that's an option too.
Yeah.
So
how does a typical, because it can't be typical because it's changing all the time, but how does your work schedule, like, let's say in a month, because I don't want to do 9 to 5, I want to give people an idea of the freedom that you have. What does a typical work month look like to you? And I know that's going to be hard, but I want to try to stay away from the day or the week.
Okay. Yeah, we should start by saying that I'm not a morning person. So I'm very lazy in the mornings. I have my rituals. I have to drink my coffee, wake up properly. And sometimes I start working at 11, 12. But when I start working, I'm really serious with what I do, and I stick to my plans for the day. And there are no Mondays to Fridays because I feel like I'm on holiday all the time while working. So there can be Saturdays and Sundays as well. It's up to me how I decide to work and how I want to work. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, with an idea, and I want to work, and I start working. It really depends, but for me, it's completely different. When I have, I don't feel well, I can take the day off. There's no problem there. And that's a major difference with a 9 to 5 job, because you can't really do that there. They need you. While you're at home, you can say, okay, I'm not feeling good now, but I'll work later. And that is not a problem. So it's more like a weekly plan than a monthly plan. And of course, when I travel, I do that on the weekends because it's easier that way.
Yeah. The reason why I wanted to say monthly, because I think the first time that we contacted each other, you were in London, and you were, and I think in your text, you were like, I'm going to change the windows. I think it was something.
Window view, yeah.
I'm going to go change my window view. And I went,
What?
oh, what a great thing. So that's why, a few weeks ago you were in London, then you're like, go on a train. And then now you're up in the Midlands in Birmingham and you're changing the view. And I think that was the way you phrased it was really beautiful. So I think that for people to understand that you don't have to be, in the same, you can find the right a fitting profession that enables you to be, I'm going to change cities.
Yeah.
I think that's magic. I think that's magical. Yeah.
Yeah, and the view is spectacular here. They have a nice garden, they have 2 rabbits and a cat, and I feel like I'm in a farm. It's amazing.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. I know people, because I'm from Canada originally. I've been in the UK on and off for 30 years, and people who've lived here all their lives are like, why would you want to be here? And I was like, it's such a beautiful country. I even the train rides from here to my sister's, and I think that in the traveling and getting out of a city, you get to appreciate the beauty of our surroundings more. And even in the city, I mean, especially a city like London, it's one of the most spectacular cities on the planet, which one of the most culturally diverse, accepting, loving cities for all of its faults is one of the best places I've ever been. And I think in my ability so yesterday, do you know where I worked from yesterday? The British Museum. So yesterday I worked from the British Museum.
Okay,
and
I'm jealous, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to work from my flat today, and the house where I am right now was closed. And I was like, I'm just gonna go walk up to the British Museum, and you can go, and you can, if you want to be a member, which I am, you can go into the members lounge, or you can just go and work in one of the restaurants or something. And I was just like, wow, how beautiful is this that I can choose all of these magnificent places to come and work from.
So
and then
what I'm saying.
Oh, I've bought in. I think that the way I am now in my life is as like I say, a guy who's been in those boxes. I had to fit a certain way to feel part of society, and to go through the work that I've had to go through, which is a lot of and I know you and I haven't had the conversations about what I've been through, but I had to do a lot of work on my growth, my transformation, and to get into a place where really those fears of not having enough, not being good enough, not presenting to my friends and my colleagues with as much money or material success. I had a lot of work to do that stuff just doesn't matter. And it's the personal relationships that I've cultivated over the years, the connection, the community building that have had nothing to do with money at all, that have given me the most joy in my life. And especially working in my recovery community and in community and with people who sometimes they just want someone to listen to. And that's given me the most joy of just being able to be present with people. And none of it has been financially motivated at all. But it's taken a lot of work to get rid of the stigma around, oh, Nick, you don't drive a Porsche anymore. I don't have a car, But in some people's eyes, you're like, Nick's a failure because he once had a Porsche and now he doesn't have a Porsche, he doesn't have a car. So I had to get over the fact that what people think of me is none of my business. And all that matters is how I present myself into the world and how I can show up the best for my friends and my family and my colleagues in the way that I can, be of service and help one another. Because I do believe too, Maddie, that, if someone says to me, what's the secret of life? It's not to get stuff. I know that. It's to be part of a community and to be a contributing factor in that community where I'm giving to the community. I'm not taking from it. And that, like I say, has given me the best, I don't know, the best balance in my life. But it's taken a lot of work. So I'm into working wherever you can, if you can. But there is also, and I do take elements of what it is like to work in an office or work in an environment where you have to go and check in, and I honor that. I think that's really cool that a lot of people have those environments that they can go to because they really thrive on that. I think as individuals, we need to treat ourselves as individuals and what works for us. So if going to an office works for you, great. If going to an office one day a week or not at all works for you, then great too. But I think that's the thing that I'd like people to take from this is just to honor what works for you so that you can be as productive and happy and joyous as you can be.
Yeah, that's what I say all the time. You have to identify what works for you and what makes you happy. Because I also have friends that they can't do what I do because they're not made of, I don't know, the same material to say so.
Mm-hmm.
They have 9-to-5 jobs and they are happy with those. And they always ask me, this is too much of a risk that you're taking working from anywhere in the world. Are you sure about this? When I first started with Grow My Team, are you sure about this? Well, that's an experience. I want to try. I want to take the risk. I want to see what happens. And if it doesn't, I'll go back to what I was doing before. But I'm so happy that I'll never go back to what I was doing before because, I found my tribe. I found my calling, and this is what I want to do from now on. And that's why I encourage people to just try and see how it is. And maybe they'll love it. Maybe that's what they want to do.
I think that's just a really amazing way to end it is just try, and if it doesn't work, you haven't really lost. Oh, I don't know. Take precautions to make sure that you're not putting anything at risk. But I think being curious has helped save my life because, again, I was brought up in all these certain ways and taken a lot of unpicking and unstitching and unlearning to go, hey, all I have is today.
Yeah.
I don't, we don't know what's happening tomorrow, and there's no point in thinking about what happened yesterday unless it's a lesson that you've learned or something. But all I have is today, and how can I, and that's all we have is today. We don't have the money in our account. We don't have all that. We're just in today, and have the freedom to be able to work the way that I work has given me the ability to be present and to flourish in a way that I never thought possible.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that all your teammates are doing the same, working from anywhere they want to. It's not about individuals; it's also about companies that we encourage them to trust their teammates and to give them space to find their genius and to thrive in their careers, because this is how you thrive in your career, by bringing your whole self to work, your creativity, and just doing what you love.
And I'll give you an example, is that my business partner moved over from Toronto to London 2 years ago. And when we started the business of Retribe in earnest to really go full on and build this company, I was saying, look, we need to be working at 8:30 in the morning because we're in a startup mode. We have to make this work. So it's like we need to be at the coal face, like grinding and grinding and grinding. And she said to me, no, Nick, I don't work like that. And I thought to myself, I've got a lazy partner. And because they're not going to be at work at 8:30 in the morning like me. And this was only 2 years ago. And again, I think that if we can get over the idea of what we are thinking today is not necessarily what we're going to be thinking even tomorrow, but for sure 6 months or a year or 2 years from now, I'm a completely different person. And I honor her work schedule. And I can see when she is working on, because we share calendars, and I'm like, you do what you need to do, and I'll do what I need to do. And our company has grown from me letting go of silly ideas that I learned when I was working in Chelsea Harbor 20 odd years ago, where my business partners were like, Nick, we need to be at our desk at 8:30 because our competitors are at their desk at 9 o'clock. We need to be beating them. And it was this whole idea of like competition and capitalism, and it was ugly and it didn't feel right. So just if anyone's listening, if I can change so much in 2 years, so can you. And it's helped me out so much. So Maddie, thank you so much for joining me. If anyone needs to get in touch with you or learn more about Growmotely, do you want to just tell them how they can get in touch with you? But also you can send me links and I'll put them in the Facebook page.
Yeah, of course. I will share my LinkedIn profile so they can find me there, Maddie Musculescu. And of course, Growmotely's LinkedIn company profile. We are there so they can find us easily, and growmotely.com, which is our website.
Beautiful. Thank you again for joining me. And when you're down in London, let me know when you're around, and I'll take you up to the British Museum and I'll show you where I do some, and this place too. It's beautiful. I'm so blessed and lucky. All right. Thanks, Maddie. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Don't forget to join me at 11 a.m. on Thursday for our Tough Through Tender workshop. Hope everyone's having a great start to the year, and we'll see you soon. Bye.